Okay, so I'm going to talk about the second trip, the second part of this story. The first video, if you haven't seen, is about the buildup of between my friend S and Jay, who owns the company, the con man, the German con guy. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, up to this point, like my friend never got money, and so we got to the point where we were thinking, okay, maybe we can get, my friend thought maybe you can get a trip out of this guy, after spending so much time. Um, because of the travel agency that was tied to the company. So I was like, so during this time, right, as I mentioned, Jay already knew about me. I already talked to him about it, and my friend S, like he just wanted something with it, so he got a trip between with him and his friend, coming from Italy, right, to Tokyo, is what they were planning. And I was thinking to my friend S, like, hey, can you get me involved in this? Can you try to give me a free trip over to Tokyo? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. And so when he was talking to Jay, like again, he's like, you can't trust him. Everything he says, yeah, I can do this. I'm gonna be your best friend. Trust me. Trust me. Just wait it out. Trust me. And it just never comes through. And he doesn't understand the timelines with other people, and that's really what it does. It's just like fucks people over. So, yeah, and I think it started in October, I believe, where we started planning this. And so my friend like was talking to Jay, and it was like an ordeal. Like a week or two went by, and finally legitimately got plane tickets from Italy. Two plane tickets from Italy to Tokyo. Trying to do first class first, like no, just don't do that. And then I was trying to get some nice hotels, but apparently they can only get some of the cheaper hotels, like in a not so great area, or not a great area in Tokyo. I mean, it's actually not bad, but in the area sort of more distant where you had to take a train to get there. And he was like, and then Jay at this time was like, he said, yeah, he can get me a plane ticket and hotel as well. And so I was like, cool, right? And I remember, I thought about this like a week. It was like 2 weeks in advance, and it was a roller coaster. Honestly, not. I knew, like, I had no idea, right? And I was like, okay, I may or may not go to Japan. I told my coworkers that I may or may not go, but if I do go, I'll work remotely, just because of short timing and a lot of things going on. So you know, it went back and forth. He said, yeah, we're going to get a plane ticket. You already, sent the request, going to set it up. And then apparently they come back and say, yeah, they're not fulfilling the request because there's not enough money. And of course, Jay's saying this bullshit. They're not, it's all on their end. But most likely he didn't have the money that he promised, and probably nearing the limit that they had for the account. And that's really what happened. But Jay never said that. He needs people's trust and needs people to rely on him, even at their detriment. So, and I knew it was going back and forth, and I thought maybe I'm not going to go to Tokyo or Japan, but I really thought, because I met my friend S for the first time a year ago, and I thought this will probably be one of the only times I get to meet him as well. I've never been to Japan or Asia for that matter, and so I said, "Fuck it, I'm going to pay." So I used my airline miles, and I just paid for the plane to Tokyo. Didn't tell Jay at first. I was going to see if he followed through, in which case I can cancel it, but it never did. So I just said, fuck it. And I was like, I was telling Jay, like, I was, that I was like disappointed. I don't know, remember what I said. And so he said, like, oh, don't worry, I'm going to come through. I promise. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He was very sympathetic when you talk to him a lot of the time. But I'm like, this is just getting out of hand. But so I was like about a day before, like I was leaving on a Saturday, I think, or I don't know, it's Friday or Saturday. I don't remember. And this is like late October because it goes over, because I came back on November 4th, I believe. So to give you an idea. So this is like October 18th when I was about to leave in 2023. And so I finally got to the point. It's like, okay, I don't know if the hotels are gonna come through. At least I have my plane ticket, and I'm paying for one day, at least when I land in Tokyo. And I did this like pod area. It was like $80 for the night, but it was a pod, cheaper in like I guess in a nice part of Tokyo. Shibuya, if you're familiar with it, it's one of the more iconic places where you see all the lights and everything like that. I'll go into that later. So I'm going in. I'm still waiting on Jay to see if he had any kind of confirmation for hotels, because the plan was I'm going to land in Tokyo, spend one night there, and then I'm going to take the bullet train with my friend S and his friend, who I'll call R actually. And we're going to take a bullet train to Kyoto, and we're going to spend like 4 or 5 days in Kyoto, and then come back. And so the plan was 4 or 5 days in Kyoto, come back, and I was going to land in Tokyo on that Saturday. I think that was like the 28th, I believe, and spend an entire week in Tokyo. I think that's perfect. So, I get on the plane, I'm flying over, and by the time there's a layover, I think in LA or somewhere, or Seattle, it's one of those two places. And I'm like, and Jay never came across, and I thought, I'm never going to get any kind of hotels. And so I left a voice note, and it was like, I was just frustrated, and it was sort of mean, but I think very deserving considering like how much he's fucked over everyone else's lives, not just my friends, but other people as well, by not paying them, and they had to take out loans, things like that. Um, to me, it's like you don't fuck with people's lives. Like business, if you're gonna be shading business, then that's fine. Like that's a whole different thing. But just don't fuck with people's lives. So I just cussed him out. I'm saying you're a pile of shit that can never follow through on anything, and I hope you get arrested one day. I said something to that tone. In a voice note to him, and like my friend was like, "Oh, geez, I can put people in their place," and so like my friend was like, "I don't want to be a part of it," and so apparently Jay was like almost crying and saying like, "How did you do this? He's ungrateful, blah blah blah." And the one thing I felt sort of bad, but not really. Still is like when I landed, I actually did finally find out that he was able to pay for my Kyoto hotels, like when I landed, and everything was set, and my friend convinced him to not cancel it considering everything that going on. And so I did apologize to him, like not that I really regret anything to do, but I did apologize just because I got the hotel. I was going to see if I can get more hotels out of him, which I never did. So yeah, what happened was, anyway, I land in Tokyo, and it was like a night, and it was interesting when, if you've ever been to Tokyo, it's like all these lights because it's during the day. I was already jet lagged, and just the music, the Japanese like dance music, J-pop, and it's like fast, like nightcore. I think sometimes if you're familiar with that genre, but you just hear the dancing. It's like sort of my type of music. I used to listen to some of that music when I was younger, so I just, in some way, I felt like this is really cool, like the music and it's like the anime stuff. And you're walking down these streets with like lights, and it was just, I got out of the intersection. It's the most iconic intersection where they shut down like these 4-lane roads in different directions, and it's this mass of people that cross this huge intersection, and I've got video with that. Anyway, and I just walked to my hotel, which was like a very thin place, and I went up to a pod, which is, you get to a floor and there's no doors, but you have a screen that you pull down to a bed, and that's all I get is a bed. But they have a common area. We had like unlimited coffee, places to work that's open 24 hours. So it was a great place for that, for like any kind of remote working, because you didn't have to leave the place if you needed to, and it had places like that. It's called Millennial or Millennium, I believe, and so look it up if you're curious. But it's a pod. It's like $80 a night for a bed. But anyway, I stayed there. I crashed, and then it was like the next day, I got all my bags and packed it, and me and my friend, we went on a bullet train. And so, if you ever gone on a bullet train, it's actually really cool. It goes up to like 120, 130 miles an hour. It's very smooth too, and it goes from Tokyo to Kyoto. So we took that train, and my friend, his hotels were paid in Tokyo, and also his hotels was paid in Kyoto, I believe. So yeah, we had our hotels paid for that. The only thing for my friend, I think, was the Tokyo coming back. So, but anyway, we go to Kyoto, and it was a beautiful place, honestly. And so, and it's interesting. Like first off, I had a New Braunfels hat on, and somebody like stopped me, saying, "Hey, is that New Braunfels?" And apparently, being identified by from New Braunfels because my hat was actually pretty cool in Kyoto. Because yeah, they're from Austin, so they obviously knew New Braunfels, and that's probably the only reason why if you're from the area. So, but it was. Kyoto is a really laid back city. It's a very relaxing because there's a lot of shrines and a lot of like temples. It used to be the capital as well, and so it's crazy where some of the place it was closed off, but like this huge palace area that was very spacious, and they had a lot of like rock lawn in areas that was closed off, and it's like perfectly manicured, and you can just imagine the old time where you had samurais and like the amount of people lined up there. And it was just really cool looking at these old temples and going around, and just it was very peaceful and very calm and very safe city. It all was, honestly. And I remember walking one of the main streets. It had a covered area where when it was really cool. It was covered, so if it rained, you could still walk on the sidewalk just fine. It was playing classical music as you're walking down it, even though it was like real crowded. But some of this shopping area, there's one called one or two streets, I believe, that you can go down. A lot of tourists and shopping area, right? But it was the entire thing was sealed off and covered, and it actually came in handy because one day it started to rain, and I remember like, I don't know, it was about a mile or two away from this area, and I was like, where can I go? Because I didn't have a raincoat on me, and it's like started to pour. And I have video, and I was like, during one of the times I was doing a tourist thing, and it started to pour, and I had to go like from shop to shop going down and rain, and then I finally got to the shopping area, and it was really cool, just like raining outside, thunder, but just being able to shop and just look around and stay dry at least for a little bit. But during this time, I also hung out with my friend, of course. Like it was funny, like between the three of us, it was hard to find a place. I'm gluten free. R is vegan and vegetarian, and then S just eats whatever. And so we're trying to put in a gluten free and vegan and vegetarian place, and sometimes that came about, and sometimes that didn't happen. But it was fun, hanging out with them. And one of the interesting things was we did take a day to Osaka, which is like about an hour train from Kyoto, and it was fun, honestly. Like Osaka was a little more laid back, not less chaotic than Tokyo. It was more of a proper city, but still had a lot of things to do. I think we went to an aquarium over there, and you see some of the pictures. I believe that was in Osaka, and we went to like a top of a tower and got to oversee everything, a lot of the city. And it was really amazing because they had these huge binocular see-through things at the top of the tower. We were inside, and just how detailed and far it can look, because I had my camera and I can zoom in. And so even when I like 200 millimeter full frame, and even when I zoomed in on that, it was like still fuzzy, and this thing can zoom in like felt like 10 times more, and it's still fairly sharp. It was actually really cool. And Osaka as well. We walked down to one of the areas where it had. It was almost like a carnival. So me and my friend S, we were shooting bow and arrows and trying to hit the spot. And I was apparently getting like bullseyes, I think, or hitting it. And my friend could barely get on the spot. We were both laughing. My R was laughing at him, and so was I. And it was funny. But it was a cool like carnival area out there, and just some creepy stuff as well. But yeah, Osaka was just like a nice little area, and a lot of good food too, honestly, like throughout the entire trip. And so so after about 5 days, and so one of the things that happened during this trip, like I was dealing with stuff like, I'm not going to go into detail, right? I was dealing with some stuff with friends. I was health scare with someone that I know, going into this. And then when I was while in Kyoto, then unfortunately layoffs happened at work as well. And so I had to deal with that, like actually respond to that and pick up some work for someone that was let go. So I was working nights, and the hours when you're working in Japan are like begins around like midnight to like 6 or 7 a.m. And so I was like having to play catch up in customer meetings as well for things I didn't know. And so it was just Kyoto. I didn't really get to, it was fun, but I didn't get to enjoy it like relaxing the way that I did. And so even though I was on the trip, I was still dealing with just a lot of things. And I don't think people really understand how much, but it was what it was, right? And so I even bought I think it was a kimono. I can't think of it. But yeah, one of the Japanese outfits, and I wore it, and I walked it down there. I asked if it was okay, and they said, yeah, one of the Japanese I put it on because I bought it. I thought it was cool just as a souvenir. I still have it, but I put it on and asked the front desk, like, "Is this okay? Is this acceptable?" Because I didn't want to go out there and be like offend anybody. And so yeah, you look good. So I was like, okay, if the Japanese front desk says okay, I'm gonna go out and walk. And I saw other foreigners would do this as well, and it was cool. We also visit a bamboo forest, I believe, out there, and you see other people walking. The same thing we saw it earlier, and it was just a beautiful time. It's a very relaxing and still city, honestly. And so yeah, we took after about 5 days, which is like that Saturday, we're about to go back. And we take the bullet train, and I bought some food as well. The people call the bento boxes, if you are familiar with it. You buy it at like some of the stores there to begin with. And so it was like a lot of like meat, and sometimes you do fish or sushi. And I also got I forgot the name of it, but it's like a rice sandwich, somewhat gluten free, of course. And they have tuna or something in there, and it was delicious. And so I'd eat that as I was like going on this train, and just we're taking pictures, and you can also see Mount Fuji on the side as well. So we got some pictures of those as we went on the train. And so yeah, and then that Saturday I landed in Tokyo, and that was when I met her. So that'll be the next video.